made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him.
Welcome to Table Talk, a 12-step journey with Nick Robinson.
Welcome back to the conversation. I'm Nick Robinson. I'm here with Rick Lanham as we continue our series on recovery, as we talk around the table at Table Talk about the 12 steps of recovery that lead to sobriety, that also relate not just to addiction, but as we've mentioned in other episodes, all kinds of things, including our discipleship and our following of Jesus. There maybe is no step more clearly related. I'm still learning, so maybe I'll learn something different at step 8. But here on step 3, maybe there's no step more closely related to the faith journey than this one, than step number 3.
Right.
Rick, what is step number 3?
Step 3 is turned our will over to the care of God as we understand Him.
Turn our will over to God as we understand Him. Now, okay, that I love these steps. One, because they have these, like, it's succinct.
Right.
The saying is succinct. Doing this does not feel succinct.
Right.
I believe this is called the Big Book in front of me. Is that what this one is?
No, that's the 12 Steps, 12 Traditions.
Okay, this is not the Big Book. I am mistaken. That's okay.
That's like the user's guide for the
This
big
is like
book.
we broke it down simple for me.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, one of the things in here is it talks about that this step is the first. So the first 2 are things about belief, and then this one is a step about action.
Correct.
Can you break it down for me, or start breaking down for me, what it actually means to turn our will over to God?
I can try to explain it.
It's a hard thing.
This is a step where in the first 2 episodes, step 1, well, not the first episode, but in the first 2 steps, I'm really fighting what's going on inside of me.
Yeah.
I'm fighting the fact that I have admitted there's a war going on inside of me, and that my world is crumbling and it's unmanageable and it's falling apart. In the second step, I'm recognizing that I need help. Mm-hmm. Because of that unmanageability, I'm helpless, and I've come to realize there's lights have come on, and I need help, and I've come to believe that I've found help. Mm-hmm. So it's all awareness. It's recognition, admission, and it's just an awareness. But third step is, now that that's happened, having recognized that, I've decided that I'm going to turn it over and let that go to somebody. Mm-hmm. And that, having believed that there's a higher power out there, in my case, that is God in the person of Jesus Christ, I am going to not only come to have believed that He can help, I'm going to give it away and turn it over and let Him do it for me. Yeah. That's huge.
Well, my understanding of God, which I imagine lines up with yours, is that God is ready to take that for us.
Has been.
Yeah.
You know,
anxious to take it from us even.
In one of the earlier episodes, because of all the different things, I talked about this battle going on, whether it's depression or anxiety, stress, thought life, alcohol, drugs, whatever I was using to cover up that pain, that loss, that hurt. I talked about the passage Romans 11:11. Have these fallen so far as to be beyond recovery? By no means. And restoration starts at the cross. I know that's where the restoration is. I know where that is, and how it's right there in front of me. It's like it's as plain as the nose in my face. Just knowing that it's there doesn't mean that I've taken my baggage and laid it there. Mm-hmm. I still have to do it. So step 3 is when I take that pain that I've been dragging around and I go, okay, I'm done doing this. And so I take it there, I turn it over, and I put it there and go, okay, I turn it over, you take it. And now from here out, you're going to have to do some work, because what I've been doing for so long isn't working. So I turn it over to you, turn it over to His care, And now this is really where the work starts.
So would it be fair to say that you could go through steps 1 and 2 and make very few, if any, changes in your actual life? If this is the first one that takes action and the first 2 are belief?
Yeah, because the first 2 really are acknowledgments and discovery steps of knowing. It's like, I think I used the analogy previously. I can get on YouTube and understand that the oil in my car needs to be changed, and I can know how to change the oil. But until I get out there and work on it and do it, I'm still going to need an oil change. It's not until I get out there and work on the car that anything changes in the performance of my car.
Yeah. Well, and another analogy that might help too is I'm very bad at basketball, but I like playing. And
Right.
there's a ton of videos now that you can watch that tell you how to do a jump shot.
Right.
And I've been watching those and they've been helping me, but just watching the video hasn't made me a perfect jump shooter. You have to go out and practice.
Right.
And practice and practice and practice.
And sitting on the couch doesn't help you dribble either.
Not even a little bit. Not if it did, I would be very good at it. I can tell you that. And so we're talking about what it means to turn our will over to God. I imagine, in my life, there are these places where it's time for me to make a decision. My will is about to be expressed in my day somehow, or like how I treat somebody, or the way that I go shopping, or the way that I spend my time. Like lots of ways our will is we live it out. And so to think about yielding my will to someone else is going to be, when it comes down to a time to make a decision, which we're constantly making decisions, is to think, well, not what do I want, but what does God want here? And so I think, and you haven't actually surrendered your will to God until you get to that point, have that thought in your mind, and then do what you think God wants rather than what you want. Like it seems like there would be evidence of step 3 based on those actions. Now, I don't think it's always clear what God wants from us. I think God does have plans and a will for our life, but it's not always immediately evident that God wants me to do this rather than this, depending on what's going on.
Well, and to your point,
Yeah.
when I first mentioned what it took for me to walk in that door and to admit my way, my things, my decisions and choices, my way is what got me to my addiction flourishing.
Yeah.
And it's what got me to be unmanageable. And it's what got me to my despair, my pit, and to my broken, what I refer to as rock bottom.
Yeah.
And that's what got me to the place where I walked into the door and said, I need help, to the we that we talked about in the first episode, so that I could be in step 1 with Tanner and then be surrounded by a group of drunks that, Mike referred to it in this step 2, and then surround myself with like-minded people and not be alone anymore. And then surround myself with other people who were working step 3 that would say, we turned our will over to the care of God as we collectively understood him, but as I understood him, and then would encourage me to grow in my faith and knowledge. And in our circles, we refer to that as working out our salvation
With fear and
trembling. Right. And that's a beautiful part of this journey, is doing that. And we call that discipleship, which is a learner.
No. So I want, in this step description, make a decision to turn our will and lives over to the care of God as we understand him. So that last parenthetical, as we understand him. Now, Rick, you and I come from a Christian background. Jesus, Holy Spirit, God the Father. That's how we understand God. We come from, I think, slightly different Christian backgrounds. And so we might even have a few theological differences in the way that we understand God. What do you make of that last parenthetical, as we understand him? How do you see that play out in people working on step 3?
Well, I think it's interesting that within any 12-step program, and we've talked about this a little bit, there's so much room, so much so much tolerance for how that gets approached. But like you said, even between the two of us, our backgrounds are different. But when I first made that decision, when I was 7 years old, my understanding of who God is
Yeah.
was so minute.
Yeah.
And then as I went into high school and then into college, my exposure at Indiana University was through Campus Crusade for Christ.
Uh-huh.
And then I went to grad school, but that was still, book knowledge based on Hebrew and Greek and syntax and all that stuff, and then all the different theologies that we had to study and know them by book and by chapter and by construct.
Yeah.
That was different. Then I went on the mission field, and it was third world exposure, but it was still my understanding of God through Rick's narrow mind. It got blown apart on the mission field.
Yeah.
Then I went through some major life crisis that I kind of got mad at God. So that put me into a crisis mode, like Mike talked about last week, and he just shut him out. He mentioned that he shut him off for 20 years.
Yeah.
So our perception of God and how we understand God, I think, is based on how we relate to him at any given time. Yeah. So, sometimes I see that as we understand him can be reframed as we relate to him, just like our relationship changes based on how we filter him at any given window of time. So I'm going to always relate to him, but guess what? He promises to never leave us or forsake us, so he's always right here.
Yeah.
Waiting for me. If you seek me, you will find me when you seek me with all your heart. So that kind of goes back to our openness and willingness and honesty to be with ourselves. If I'm open and willing to seek him, he's right here. All I got to do is get to my knees or close my eyes, call out, and he will be right there.
Well, it's like the prodigal son. Right. He wanders off, and you turn around, and you don't even make it back to apologize yet, and God's already meeting you.
Yeah, he's standing on the front porch looking for me.
Ready to throw a party.
Exactly.
And this is, to me, so important even in churches. At Asbury, so I'm a United Methodist pastor at a church in Columbus, right? But on Easter we had a big crowd, but there are so many different understandings of God in that crowd, and so even people who are seriously following after God, like for me, this is so important because it gives us room to change our minds. It gives us room to grow. It gives room for those new experiences and for us to wrestle as we learn about God and who it is that we've yielded our lives and our will to. Okay, we're going to take a break here, and we're going to bring out Lacey, our guest for today, as we talk to her about step 3. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Nick.
Welcome back to Table Talk, a 12-step journey. We have Lacey Imhoff here with us to continue our conversation about step number 3. So, Lacey, we like to ask all of our guests this first question. Why did you say yes to being here? It can't be an easy place, I imagine, to be. So why did you say yes?
Well, absolutely nothing happens in this world by mistake. And I was asked by somebody that is very special in my life and a blessing. So I hope to increase those blessings to others. That's why I'm here.
I love that. Nothing happens by accident. You get an invitation, you say yes, and not just to get it done, but to try to make an impact in someone else's life. And that's absolutely what we're trying to do, kind of decrease stigma, make it easier for people to say yes to being on this journey, but also for people to know how to come alongside people in their journey. So we're on step number 3, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So one of the reasons our guests are on here, because they're talking about like the practical parts of doing this. Stacey, how was this step for you? Lacey, how is this step for you in your journey?
How is it for me?
Yeah, step number 3. What was it like for you?
Well, let me give you a little bit of my background.
Yeah, go
Maybe
for it.
that'll help. I spent 30 years living my way.
Mm-hmm.
I made poor choices, battled addictions, relationships, and nothing really ever worked out for me. I couldn't do it on my own anymore and expect to actually survive.
Hmm.
I was in the darkest of places. So I I checked myself in to a rehab
Okay.
to clean out. You know, I didn't have my family left. I didn't have my people, places, and things were all they weren't they weren't they weren't helping me in any way.
Oh.
Um, and so I checked myself into rehab. I got baptized in that rehab
Oh.
on August 4th of 2024. And, I surrendered. I surrendered after I knew there was something greater than me,
Mm-hmm.
because he had kept me alive. I still had something in my life, even though I didn't see it at the time.
Mm.
Because at the time I didn't have anything, just, me. So, yeah, I went to the rehab, and it wasn't really until I started working. What happened after the rehab was when, I surrendered to God completely because I knew there was something greater than me that was keeping me alive and for a purpose, which I didn't see before. Um, yeah, so it was like it was more of a spiritual awakening
Okay.
to me.
Did you have a faith life or a church life before going to rehab that time? Or was this brand new for you there?
Actually, I had my parents both work a 12-step program.
Okay.
They have my entire life. So that was really the foundation I had as a church, with interaction with people, groups, and, them. It wasn't like we talked about God. It was just like what they set by example, like what,
Okay.
had God had done for them, their
Mhm.
life. And it was from the 12-step program,
Oh,
ultimately.
so the 12-step program helped your parents like in their discipleship, and that was your exposure to discipleship and following God. And then uh, things are not going well. Uh, things are messed up. You're not going to make it. So you check yourself into rehab. And then what happens in rehab that leads you to saying yes to baptism? Is there someone preaching to you? Are you doing a Bible study? Or is God just working on you in God's own time there? Like what happens at rehab that you said yes to God there?
I think I had spent 30 years using and abusing my mind, my body, spiritually, mentally, and physically. And I started having dreams
Okay.
that, were vivid for the first time in my life.
Mm.
That's when I really got in. My parents came out for a visit, and it was, my mom had got me a Bible,
Oh,
and it was something that she had always tried to bring up to me, but
okay.
I had to find it on my own
Mm-hmm.
in order for it to work in my life. I had to find my own belief of my higher power,
Mm-hmm.
who I call God.
Yeah. Uh, so your mom is trying to, invest in you, teach you these things throughout life, and we often don't always hear the best advice that our parents give us. We do have to learn it the hard way as we go about our lives, and we learn to appreciate our parents. Maybe sometime later than would have been best for us if we had learned to appreciate our parents earlier. Sometimes depends on our parents and our journeys. Uh, so you said so in rehab, you're baptized and you kind of begin this process of surrendering your will to God. And then when you're out of rehab, then you learn even more about how to completely surrender yourself to God. What happened after rehab that continued down that journey for you?
Well, to be honest, I got ejected out of the rehab
Okay.
2 days early before I
Okay.
was supposed to move on to another program for that facility and move to another town. And due to circumstances of another patient there, I did the right thing. I know I did the right thing, and as a direct result, they ejected me out of the rehab
Okay.
and sent me basically walking down the road with nobody or nothing, my Bible and the shirt I got baptized in and the clothes I had on my back. So, yeah, I had no idea where I was headed, where I was going. I just, for the first time, I kind of realized I wasn't alone anymore. And, that I just, it was perfect weather. I remember the wind and the trees and, the sounds, and I was clean and sober, and I wasn't fearful of what was going to happen to me, because I knew at that point, everything that had led up to that happening to me had happened to me for a reason. Yeah.
That strikes me as deeply dependent on God to have been, ejected from rehab early, and that disrupt all of your plans. You don't have like you have your shirt and your Bible, like you don't have a lot of things, physical things to provide for you, but like in that moment you still feel peace and confident like that. That's amazing. That speaks a lot of volume to me.
Well, what comes to my mind immediately is peace I'll give you, not the way the world understands
Yeah.
it, but as I give it. And I had heard that part of her story
Yeah.
before. Keep going.
Yeah,
I'm like,
Rick knows there's more to the story.
What comes
So
next?
Lacey, please tell us the rest of the story.
What part? No, let's see. I walked for some time. I looked later, it was like 13 miles.
Oh wow.
Um, some man ended up picking me up on the side of the road. And he wasn't going to pick me up at first until I asked, which way was Bloomington, because I was out by Bloomington somewhere.
Okay.
And he said, I was just following the sun by then. So I knew I was going west.
Okay.
He told me, Bloomington's 26 miles that way. Get in the truck. So I did, and it just, everything after that led right up to how I ended up where I'm at today.
Okay.
I didn't worry where I was going to be at, because I didn't fear anything. I didn't fear the people and places and things I had gotten away from. I didn't fear failure. I didn't want to fail in my life anymore. I knew, I knew I was done, and I had watched it growing up. How well this program had worked for my parents, and how happy and full of life and the way they live, and it's something that's I've held on to.
So the path had been trod before you. You saw the results, and you were committed to it now.
Absolutely.
What? So one of the things that I kind of picture or assume is that even starting down this path of recovery, it can be really challenging. People often, at least to hear about it from others, don't start until they reach kind of rock bottom or a really difficult place. What kept you? Do you know what kept you from taking this route sooner after having seen your parents do it?
Well, I didn't have beliefs sooner. I didn't have belief that I was meant to have a purpose. I didn't have a belief that, I was actually a decent human being, because I didn't think that I deserved any better. I didn't think my life deserved any better. I thought, I was just going to be in the dark place I wasn't at, and that, I was accepted of that. I didn't talk to God. I didn't, believe that I had an ultimate purpose to live.
Well, I'm glad that has changed.
Me too.
So one of the things that you do is you sponsor people who are also in recovery. Is that right?
Yes.
So how would you counsel somebody if step 3 was just so hard for them, if they just couldn't turn their will over to God?
Well, It's a one day at a time
Okay.
for me. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
one moment at a time. If I have a sponsee that's feeling overwhelmed or something with, turning they don't, because this program is just one day at a time, what I can do. Because, tomorrow I might not be here tomorrow. It's not promised to anybody but God. So, I don't.
So keep it simple. Turn
Yeah.
turn it over today, because
Just
who
for
knows what
today.
tomorrow's going to be.
Yeah, just for today.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a pastor. I preach. I like do pastory things. But like it's still like faith is still a one day, a one moment at a time. Like to trust that God's love is there, that God's grace is there, that God's calling is there. That all like I don't think we never get to a point in life where it becomes longer term than that, when it's more than just that moment or that day. So step 3. Um, so what happened after you got to Bloomington? I have to ask. So did you get to Bloomington on this car ride?
I did.
Okay,
I got to Bloomington.
and then what happens when you get to Bloomington?
I was so thirsty, and they gave me the rehab actually kept all my money on the books, and the guy when he was throwing me out had $3 in his wallet, so he gave me the $3, and I told him, when I figure out where I'm at and how I'm gonna get there, I'm gonna use this $3 to get me something to drink, because it was August, it was hot,
Yeah.
and I went to that little ice cream place there on the corner, and there was all these young college girls working, and I don't know if they seen the look on my face or what, and I was so thirsty, and she said, can I help you? And I wanted to know how much an ice cream cone was. I said, well, I might have enough, and it was like $4.78 or something, and I'm gonna count out my change, and I want a glass of water, please, too, with some chocolate ice cream, and she said, you can have it. So that was like my first, like, yay, this is this is working. I can keep this, because I literally only had $3 in my possession, I didn't have anything. And then it just kept leading one thing after another. I walked down to the gas station, and lo and behold, there's a girl working behind the counter, and I hadn't seen her in a long time, and she seen me and was like, where did you come from? And I was like, down that way. Can I use a phone so I can get somewhere? And everything just started leading up to absolutely where I had to be, where he wanted me to be at the time.
Oh. So I think that leaves us with like this closing thought. Like, one of the reasons that we can turn our will and our lives over to God, the care of God, is because God cares for us. Like I can't fathom that day, but you can so squarely point to it as a place that God was with you and leading you through something, and from there has done so much in your life. And that's just inspiring. So thank you, Lacey, for sharing your story with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to take another little break, and we're going to come back with our closing thoughts. All right, welcome back to the conversation as we continue talking about step number 3. Rick, we just got a couple minutes left here. What kind of thoughts do you have for us as we wrap up?
Well, it's interesting to hear someone else tell their story about turning their life over to the care of God. And when I listened to Lacey's story, the whole thing is turned over. I mean, her life was turned over. And when she left that place, or she used the word ejected, she left with her Bible and the clothes on her back. And it's not just a turning over, it's turned upside down. But she left with that. And then there was a car that picked her up. And then it was somebody that gave her ice cream. And it's like one block. She said one day at a time, but it's like one block at a time. And to me, I had a picture of building a foundation, one brick at a time. There's an old old song of building my castle of love, and God does that. God is love, but to me, it's building a fortress, a fortress of faith. And once we turn our will, my personal will, my will over to the care of God, He builds a fortress of my faith. In the 12-step program, we have the saying of what I was like, what happened, what I'm like now. And it reminds me of the story of the blind man being healed in John 9. He was born blind. He was born that way, and how it works. It talks, there are those who are born that way. We've talked about this before. Born an addict, born with depression, born with the tendency to do things pridefully, selfishly, but, born, here's what I was. I was a mess. I came into this program. I worked this program. I gave my will over to the care of God. I gave my life over to Jesus Christ. The blind guy, I was blind. He touched me. Now I see. I was a mess. I worked this program. Now I have a new life. I see so many tie-overs and connections to that. And that's what step 3 is all about.
Yeah, and I think I could imagine someone saying, well, I need to build a castle. Well, I don't have anything to build with. And
Keep coming back. Build them one step at a time, one day at a time.
And Lacey's story, I mean, walking down the road with, some clothes and a Bible, like that doesn't feel like a lot to build with, but she was able to do it. And it kind of, it's convicting to me, like, who am I to say that I don't have something to build with? Like, God can work with anything.
And I think, we started this with what are the specific words for each step.
Yeah.
Tanner talked about the first step being hopeless or helpless. Step 2 was hope. There is hope. Step 3, the word's faith.
Faith. Well, we're going to leave with that. Thank you for joining us for the conversation as we have this table talk about the 12 steps and the journey of recovery.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Rick, and thank you, Lacey.